Hey, everybody. Welcome to the broadcast for All People's Church. And thanks for tuning in tonight to stay connected and to hear the word of the Lord and be encouraged. My name is Philip, and I'm excited to just bring a very short word tonight. I hope it speaks to you and it gives you clarity about how to move forward in this new season that we're in and how things are rapidly changing in our country. So this evening, my talk is entitled, Moses Hits Rock Bottom. So the verse that I'm using is out of Numbers 20. I'm going to read it for you. So actually, I'm just going to summarize. So here we have, it's the third time the Israelites are they've been in the wilderness for 40 years. They came out of Egypt, and this is the third time that now they have grumbled and complained to Moses and Aaron that they have no water. Miriam, their sister, has just passed away. And so 40 years earlier, shortly after they cross over the Red Sea, they show up to an area where the waters are bitter. And so Moses takes like a branch and puts it in the water, and the bitter water becomes sweet. And so they're able to drink that water. And then shortly after that, the people start complaining again that they have no water. And God commands Moses to strike a rock, and out of this rock, water begins to flow like a natural spring. And then miraculously, this natural spring, this rock, travels with the Israelites for 40 years. Wherever they go, they have water. So it's been 40 years since they've had a water problem. And then all of a sudden, right after Miriam's death, it's just really on the eve of them coming into the promised land to where they'll be scouting it out, and they start complaining, hey, we got no water. And God basically shows up after Moses and Aaron go and to the tent of meeting and seek the Lord and say, hey, what are we going to do? And God shows up and gives them very specific instructions it's interesting, to take the staff, to go and speak to the rock so that water will flow. And specifically, God asked them to do that because it would give glory to God. It was a different way. It was a new beginning. It was, there was a crisis, and God wasn't going to do it the way he did it before when Moses hit the rock 40 years earlier. It was a new thing, and God says, speak to the rock, and it would have been fresh revelation for all of the Israelites to see that God did in fact place Moses and Aaron in leadership, and that God would do it, and it would give God glory and bring him glory in that way. However, as many of us can relate, Moses is frustrated because of his circumstances, because of people around him. He's been leading these millions of people, and I'm sure it was a super difficult task of leadership. And Moses is I don't know, maybe he woke up on the wrong side of the bed that morning, but for whatever reason, he's not happy. And he basically, when he goes and brings all the people together, he has his staff in his hand, and he gets upset, frustrated, and calls all the people rebels. So he's just basically telling them how he feels. Hey, I'm not happy with you. You guys are a bunch of rebels. And if it were up to me, basically, I'd just, I'd hit y'all with this staff. But he doesn't speak to the rock, and instead, in frustration, he hits the rock. It says twice, he hits the rock, and water flows out of this rock. So now the people have their water. Their problem's over. The crisis is done. However, because of the disobedience, it seems a subtle disobedience, but the punishment that God lays out for Moses and Aaron seems to be extremely harsh. However, in leadership, when you are in leadership, there is a high standard, especially when your error is done in public, which in this case it was. And so in God's wisdom, he tells Moses and Aaron that they will not enter the promised land. They will not enter Israel with the rest of the people. And they take it. There's no mention in scripture that they reacted in a negative way, but I would imagine they are humans. I would imagine that it was a difficult word to hear. Oftentimes we, as humans, we make decisions out of frustration and out of emotion, and especially when circumstances are changing like they are now in our world and in our country, where there's a lot of adjustment that needs to take place. Sometimes we can get aggravated, we can get frustrated, and we can sometimes take it out on the people that are closest to us, and that often happens. So we need to be careful as we enter into constant change. I know that many of us handle it differently than others, but the word that I want to share tonight is very simple. It's three things. We need to trust, adapt, and have faith. And it starts with trusting. And the definition, I have it for you here. So trust is firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone. So my question is, who is your trust in? Is your trust in the economy? Is your trust in the stock market? Is your trust in how much food there will be in the grocery stores tomorrow? Is your trust in what you're going to do if you have to stay at home for 2 weeks and the internet crashes? What are you worried about? What are you afraid of? Ultimately, we have to trust in God. And I know that firsthand because I got sucked up into it as well, with all the emotion and all the hype and everything that's happening. I got sucked up into it and yesterday, a couple days ago, and I couldn't seem to get away from it. It was like chasing me. And I called a close friend, and he spoke some truth into my life, and the Lord spoke through him. And I was able to basically say, God, I'm sorry for not trusting you. I'm putting my trust in something else. And it's so easily done when things are shifting and changing all around us. So my word for you is to take your eyes off of anything that is causing you anxiety or worry, because it will fail you. You need to put your trust and hope in the Lord. And what's cool is the verse for today on the Bible Gateway is Jeremiah 17, 7-8. Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. They will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the stream. It does not fear when heat comes. Its leaves are always green. It has no worries in a year of drought and never fails to bear fruit. So trust in the Lord. Second point is adapt. So one of my most favorite words is flexible. It is probably the most important thing that any human being can cultivate in their life as you walk with the Lord, because you can make your plans and you can come up with good ideas, but if you are not flexible, because God will call audibles in your life if you let him, and he will say, nope, don't go that way, go this way. Nope, don't do that, do this, or don't do that, do nothing. It is important that you remain flexible, and especially in a time such as this, we need to remain flexible, and we need to adapt to the changes that are happening, and keep our resolve by trusting in the Lord through those changes. And so, I remember when I went on my first mission trip, the leader said, hey, I need 3 things from you. These are the 3 things that I must have if you go on this trip. And he said, number 1, be flexible. Number 2, be flexible. Number 3, be flexible. It was emphasized, you have to be flexible. When you're entering an area, when you are taking a journey towards something that is unfamiliar and that you don't know what to expect, it is so critical that we remain flexible. And so you must adapt. You must, and you can't adapt if you're not trusting in the Lord and him alone. And so if something is chasing you down, we must turn back to the Lord. If you need help, reach out to a friend like I did. Reach out to a pastor, reach out to someone, pray and ask the Lord. Maybe the Lord will just give you that revelation, but there's nothing wrong with reaching out and saying, hey, I need some help. God honors our humility when we say, hey, I don't have it all together. I need a little help here. I'm struggling with this. So be flexible, remain flexible. I am in a new season. I've been leading a roofing company with my brother for almost 4 years now. And one thing I have learned is that we have to remain flexible. And I tell my customers, hey, you need to be flexible, because I can't control the weather. I can't control what happens on a build if we're doing a big project and something doesn't go the way that we thought, or we run into a snag and there's additional work. Everybody has to be flexible because the schedule is always a moving target. And so in every arena of life, I found that flexibility is critical. So be flexible. Number 3, have faith. So I already talked about trust, but faith is similar, but there is a slight difference. Faith is essentially putting your trust in God, but it results in action. And that action could either be remaining faithful with what you already have and don't turn to the right or to the left. It could be God calling you into a great step of faith, to step into a new direction, to step up and do something that you feel like is super uncomfortable for you. We need to have faith. The word says that we cannot please God without faith. And so we must put our faith in God and take action upon that faith. And when you do, trust me, even though, you might feel like you're inept or inadequate to take that step of faith, if it's God that's calling you, he will come through. He never fails. Sometimes, however, when God is asking us to take a step of faith, we will try to put all the pressure on ourselves to perform. We will take all this pressure and we will overcomplicate it and we will overthink it. But faith is actually really simple. Faith is just simply taking that step and trusting in God and not putting our faith in our performance, not placing high expectations on us to perform at some level. Ultimately, God is the one is in control. And if you're taking the step of faith, he is pleased with that step of faith because God, it says that we please God when we walk by faith. So my encouragement to you is walk by faith in this season. And to sum it all up, these 3 words, trust and adapt and faith, when you take these 3 things and you walk in these 3 things, you are going to make it through this storm. Just as it says, blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. They will be like a tree planted by the waters that sends out its roots by the stream. It does not fear when heat comes. Its leaves are always green. It has no worries in a year of drought and never fails to bear fruit. The goal here is to bear fruit, and we cannot bear fruit if we're not trusting in the Lord, if we're not adapting and remaining flexible as things come, and as we continue to put our faith and trust in Jesus Christ and him alone. So I bless you. Thank you for dialing in. Please stay connected as we weather this together. I want you to know that God is still in control. He's still on the throne. God has not called us to be people of worry. He does not want us worrying about things that we have no control over. So release them to God. Speak it out loud and say, God, I'm releasing this to you. Give me the grace to release whatever it is that I'm carrying as we step into this unknown territory. As a country, I think, though, it's also very comforting to know that we're all in it together. I think it's gonna bring our country together, and we're gonna be stronger for it. I even think the world will be stronger for it because we're all going through the same thing together. And I also believe that there's great opportunity for God to use what's happening to shake things up and encounter people in fresh ways. And so be hopeful. Be hopeful that God is going to use this time and this season and this near future to bring about a great harvest of people who are going to turn their eyes back on him, and they're going to be trusting and adapting and having faith. God bless and have a great evening.